The Great Escape, and the ominous booking. It was late spring, the final days of May. I was completely uprooting my life, trading the concrete canyons of New York City for the sun-baked silence of Arizona. I had hired movers to handle the bulk of my belongings, my entire life packed into boxes, heading west. I wanted the journey to be a cleanse, a fresh start, so I planned a solitary, sprawling road trip. The full drive was nearly 40 hours, which I decided to break into 4 punishing 10-hour segments, staying in a new city each night. My first major stop was calculated to land me deep within rural Kansas. I hit up the rental sites, specifically looking for the absolute cheapest place. Kansas was just a stopover, a place to collapse. I found a listing for a tiny, single-story ranch house. It boasted 2 bedrooms, but the price was almost suspiciously low. I booked it instantly, but a flicker of unease crossed me. The photos were strange. They showed the kitchen, the living room, and 1 pristine bedroom, but the second bedroom was only pictured from the doorway, like the owner was trying to hide something. Still, fatigue won over intuition. I booked it for the following night. The descent into darkness. I left late, later than I had wanted. The sun was already dipping below the horizon by the time I crossed the border into Kansas. The drive became a dizzying tunnel of asphalt and blinding headlights. If you've never been through the heartland at night, you can't grasp the sheer magnitude of the dark. It is an oppressive, infinite void. It was close to midnight when my GPS directed me off the main interstate and onto a dirt track that felt less like a road and more like a scar in the earth. The Airbnb finally appeared, isolated, silhouetted against a sliver of moon. It looked utterly abandoned, far more decrepit than the cheerful photos had suggested. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I parked and went to the door. This is where the true terror began. There was no key box, no combination lock. The front door was secured only by a basic, flimsy chain lock, the kind a child could kick open. It was horrifyingly insufficient. My heart started to pound, but exhaustion and the chilling realization that I had no other option forced me inside. The room with the sealed door. Inside the house was surprisingly cozy, a stark contrast to the exterior. I checked the first bedroom, relieved to find a proper lock on the door. I threw my bags in and started to unpack. But that's when I saw it. Right across from the foot of the bed, integrated into the wall, was a door. It wasn't a normal door. It was small, maybe 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide, a child-sized or perhaps a service hatch. It wasn't just old, it was ominously sealed. A thick bead of aging caulk ran around the perimeter, and it was secured by a heavy, rusted latch. I pushed on it, testing the lock. It didn't budge. It was bolted from the other side, or maybe just sealed for good. I tried to rationalize it. Maintenance access? A closet for small tools? But the more I stared at that unnatural low doorway, the more the air in the room seemed to grow cold. I felt an irrational but overwhelming sense of someone on the other side, someone waiting. The tapping and the escape. I was physically and emotionally drained, and eventually I fell into a fitful, shallow sleep. Then, the sound. I woke to a sound so subtle, so terrifyingly close, it paralyzed me. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the wall, right beside the small sealed door. It wasn't a pipe, it wasn't the house settling. It was deliberate. I lay there holding my breath, my entire body rigid. My throat was tight with a silent scream. Tap, tap, tap. It was the sound of a single, slow knuckle rapping the drywall. I blindly fumbled for my phone, my hands slick with sweat, and switched on the flashlight. The instant the light pierced the darkness, the tapping stopped. The silence that followed was louder than any noise. It was an absolute, suffocating silence. In that terrifying void, I finally understood the pure, raw definition of panic. I didn't question it. I didn't check the door. I scrambled out of the bed, heart hammering against my ribs, and grabbed my keys and wallet and stumbled out of the house into the midnight blackness. I didn't even lock the door behind me. I practically flew to my car. I sped backward down that desolate dirt track, fishtailing the car, desperate to get back to the interstate. My eyes were glued to the rearview mirror. As I hit the main road and glanced back at the abandoned structure, I caught a glimpse of something in the flicker of my headlights. A figure, short and hunched, standing perfectly still in the front yard. It wasn't waving, it was just watching me leave. The final chilling twist. I drove for 2 hours, running on pure adrenaline, before I dared to pull over in a brightly lit truck stop. My first act was to text the Airbnb owner. I kept it brief, professional, and slightly hysterical. I had to leave suddenly. There's someone or something inside the house that shouldn't be there. Please check the property and contact the local sheriff. I finally found a few hours of uneasy rest in my car, but when I woke up and checked my phone, the true horror set in. My message to the owner had been marked as read only 5 minutes after I sent it, meaning they were awake and checking their phone in the dead of the night. But they never replied. They never confirmed they checked. They never apologized. They never asked what happened. They just read the message and let the silence swallow it whole. I drove away from Kansas that morning and never looked back, haunted by the thought of what was behind that little sealed door and who was reading messages in the dark.